Hey, what's going on, good people? It's Gardner Douglas, your Oyster Ninja. I'm here today with the legend in the game, Mr. Mark Drabich. You may know this young man as the Funky Fishmonger. I saw this guy on social media just doing his thing as fishmongers do, and I was like, I got to get him on the podcast. So here we are. Mark, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great, Gardner. Thank you very much, and thank you for keeping the torch alive with your shucking skills.
Appreciate you, man. It's my pleasure, first of all, and I'm just glad to be in the circle of great people like you and other ones who have led the way. For folks who don't know, well, let's just start from the beginning. Like,
Sure.
just tell me a little bit about yourself, man.
Yeah. So I started working in fish markets all through high school and college, and fast forward, we've had our store Metropolitan Seafood for the last 35 years. And just a typical, beautiful American dream. We started in 450 square feet. Now we have, I don't know, 6,000 square feet. But as modern as the industry has become as far as where you can get fish from, we still do it as ancient as it was intended to be. Everything still comes in. We break all the fish down. As far as like oysters, for example, we have on average 18 different oysters every single day from our clients to choose from. So, and we just, we get them from all over the country, and, it's fun.
That's amazing. Let's hit that real quick. Like, what's a fan favorite of your customers for oyster
Listen,
variety?
when it comes to oysters, people have a very definite opinion. East Coast, West Coast, can't we all get along? But like, people really love the Northeast, with that really deep brine. What a lot of folks don't realize in the last, say, 25 years, like Jersey oysters have come up exponentially, and they can compete with any, Massachusetts oyster. I mean, you have guys who, we're growing more oysters now than we have in the last, 40 years. So, like I said, for me personally, I love them all. I'm not a huge fan of some of the southern oysters for raw purposes, but they're fabulous for cooking. They don't have that brine, that real big punch that the East Coast does. But also, too, you take the West Coast, as you got that big brine in the front, and then you're picking up that mineral flavors and stuff like that, and which is fabulous for grilling. I mean, because it stays nice and full in the shell, and it's just, like, again, a bad oyster is an oyster that is, that is not shucked properly, or, I mean, like I said, it's just, there's no bad. It's all good.
Thank you for saying that, because that's the exact thing I was thinking. I was like, yeah, bad oyster is when it's not shucked properly.
Right.
Even though I was schooled in my last episode, well, it's actually about to drop this week. But I had a guy reach out to me on social media, and he was like, man, why are you giving everybody a hard time about, not shucking oysters as pretty as you do, and, you're bashing people and all that kind of stuff. So,
Right.
initially, I kind of took it to heart, because with social media and just me as a person in general, I'm
Right.
no, I'm not one to bash people or talk
Right.
negative, but I
Right.
see where he's coming from. But Alex Lambert with Lambert Shellfish, he was saying same thing. He's not, on the level that I'm on. It's more of, so let's educate people about how to properly shuck an oyster.
Listen, I'm
Um,
for that, but I'm also not going to tell you you're pretty when you're not. I mean, sometimes, I mean, listen, if you're gonna give me a pre-chewed oyster because I mean, listen, all hats off for the effort. I'm delighted that you're giving it a go, but you don't pick up a golf club, swing the first time, and then tell me you're gonna play on the pros. And you don't have to be a pro. Just get to know as you go through the process. you work it and you just get a little bit better at scraping the top shell so it doesn't. And by the way, there's even a little cheat guide, as you know, that if you open it the first time, you kind of, if you hit the top, and you can flip it over and hide your mistake. But, listen, I have young bucks, they're working here a couple of times. How was that? I go, it looks like you chewed it and spit it back in the shell. I love you, but let's work on that presentation. And that goes for anything. I'm not gonna congratulate someone for learning how to tie their shoes at 25. And I'm also not going to tell someone that's a fabulous pancake, you know what I mean? Like when it's burned as shit, you know what I mean? So, you know what I'm saying? It's fine. I want to teach people how to show. Listen, there's a video of me on YouTube. I was probably about 50 pounds heavier. I would look as fat as a swollen tick. But again, I just want to show people the technique in which to do it. Now, everyone's got a slightly different technique. You start from the front, I see sometimes. We start from the hinge and you pop it and scrape it. And, there's a whole thing regarding whether you like a bent tipped oyster knife or a straight tip. And that's all great. But just know that the first oyster, listen, you ever make sushi, Gardner? You ever make a sushi roll?
No, I never made one.
Okay.
I eat it,
right.
but
So
I never made it.
Right. But once you know how to make the rice, you're working on your presentation from that day forward. You know what I mean? And so the better the oyster, for me, the less I want on the oyster. Maybe just a touch of lemon or a little black pepper or just a hint of hot sauce. And like I said, if you're drinking hard and down, you were in New Orleans, load up that cocktail sauce, and get some crackers to back it up, But each oyster is different, you know what I mean? And there is, and like I said, I'm sure you know this already. There's only 5 species of oysters on the continent. And this entire continent is only 5 species. So the same difference in wine, they call it terroir. That's what makes the oyster taste and look different. Was it a rolled oyster? Was it a wild oyster? Or was it farmed? Some of these guys are even getting nuanced and even taking the oysters and literally hanging them in a net for the last week or so just to get brinier and even a little bit cleaner. So there's a lot of really fantastic things happening within the oyster industry. You know what I mean? And like I said, we need more folks to celebrate it because it's, like I said, it's an ancient technique and not for the kitschy reason of just having, an oyster at a party. But when you could listen, I couldn't play the guitar growing up. So, when that cool guy would come to the campfire with his guitar, I was the guy who could shuck oysters at the fireside. It didn't get me a lot of action, but it fed a lot of girls. You know what I mean? But,
You got to start somewhere.
Amen.
So we've been talking about shucking. Is it the same thing for fish? Like, as people fillet fish or butterfly fish or whatever? Like, is it the same? Do
Listen,
people care? Like it's a lot of meat left on the bone? Like,
oh, hell yes. Oh, I care because I pay for it. So yeah, I want that. Yeah, I want that to look like a starving supermodel. I want no meat on the bone. But people, and I do applaud people, wanting to fillet their own fish. And there's definitely, and there's a lot of guys now on social media. What's the one I watch? Read the FishMonger. He's always filleting fish, and he does a fabulous job. And the technique that he's doing is a very professional technique, where you're putting the knife in the one end and pushing it through so you're not scraping the knife on the skin and dulling your knife. But people, like I said, in my industry, in the retail store, I want people just to come to us with whatever cuts they want, and we'll make it happen. Whether they want a book fillet or a butterfly, and the book fillet is actually book fillet is when you start from the belly and open it this way, as where a butterfly, you start from the top. Now, it only works if you have not gutted the fish yet, because the belly is connected and it actually looks like a butterfly, when you're doing it. But all that stuff. But let's not forget, too, eating fish off the bone is one of life's greatest carnal pleasures. I mean, you take any fish and you eat it off the bone. I mean, count me in. I ask you kindly to look away while I'm eating, because you might have some nightmares later. But I love to get into that whole thing. I mean, just rip it apart. If a cat walks by, you'd be pissed off that I left them nothing. You know what I mean? But people always say this to me, oh my God, I'm so afraid to choke on the bones. I said, well, take your fork away, use these, put the fork in the drawer, and just have at it, But it tastes completely different. You know that. I mean, I don't care what you're talking about. Pork, chicken, beef, fish, that bone adds a depth of flavor that you can't get with a fillet. And again, not everyone agrees with me. And I eat how I want to eat. I mean, I prefer a flounder cut up in steaks and fried that way. Totally different experience. Plus, a big guy like me, I need to be slowed down a little bit. So if there's some bones in it, I don't eat too much in a short period of time.
Right. And we're jumping over a bunch, but I do want to talk about like just your social media presence, man. You're killing it, man. Like I don't even really want to call you a fishmonger. I really want to call you Chef Mark.
No,
some of the
don't you
dishes
ever.
are,
If I see you, I'll knock a tooth out of your mouth. I'm a fishmonger. Listen, I am untrained. Listen, I'm a chubby kid that learned how to make really great eggs when I was about 8 years old. But listen, I have the deepest respect for chefs, okay? I have an immense respect for chefs. These are people that create, in my mind, they don't only create a concept, but they put together in such a way. My recipes, so in the last 35 years, I've written approximately 2,000 recipes, okay? Inspired, and for example, if you go to our website, metroseafood.com, we send out, our email list now is over 10,000 people that receive our email twice a week. And I include those recipes. Now, people ask me too, why am I not including the recipe in the social post? Is because as we speak, we're putting together a cookbook. You know what I mean? So, and by the way, if you email me, and it's all my email is all over social, I will send you the recipe. But we are consciously trying to put together a cookbook. But when you talk about the recipes, they are, they're inspirations that I've done over the years, but they're not technically. We just took a good ass kicking from our Thai clams, and it was Thai clams. Anyway, and everyone was like jumping on the thing that it wasn't Thai. Matter of fact, one of the funniest things where one guy said, no Thai ingredients were harmed in the making of this recipe. Now, first of all, that's as funny as fucking shit. That's funny stuff. But it was one of our most successful posts. And I've had probably over 250 people that have emailed me for that recipe and sent me pictures back, of their creations. And okay, so why did I call it Thai? Well, when I wrote that recipe, it was probably 1992. And I'm not trying to appropriate, but it's inspired. So, for example, I'm half Lebanese. If you decide to make hummus with lime juice instead of lemon juice, because that's what you have at the house at the time, then by all means, make it. Celebrate your thing. I don't want people to necessarily learn a recipe as much as I want them to have confidence in a technique. Listen, and I know that the majority of seafood is still eaten in a restaurant, okay? And that's a fact, okay? People are terrified, of how to cook it and prepare it, when it's actually 10 times easier than making a perfect roast beef. You try to make a good roast beef from stem to stern, that perfect medium rare, unless it says boar's head on it, it's hard to replicate that at home. With fish, the inspirations that I get are, someone says, oh, that reminds me of a dish I used to have. And I tell them the last original recipe, you know what that was? Peanut butter and jelly. After that, everyone begged, borrowed, and stole. You know what I mean? You have to, so you take an inspiration, but make no apologies for it. You know what I mean? So if I say it's a Lebanese dish, okay, I'm half Lebanese. But I will still lean forward into, other cultural cuisines, borrowing from them. And I don't have a bird's eye chili, but I do have Calabrian chili peppers. Again, it's called America. It's a melting pot, babe. You know what I mean? If you're looking for pure, go back to that country of origin, go on vacation, have it, and keep that memory secured there. I want you to cook what you have around you from inspiration, not from discipline. And that's the difference between a chef. They're disciplined. You know what I mean?
Well, I just hope that people really go to your Instagram, your social media, sign up for the newsletter, all of that good stuff. Because the thing about it is, I can't cook worth a dime. I can shuck my tail off shucking some oysters, up and down. I got you. But as far as cooking, I can't. But when I look at your videos, I'm like, man, okay, yeah, that's simple. All right, I
No.
think I can sweeten
Yeah,
that.
you definitely can. Listen,
You know what I mean? You make it approachable.
And listen, here's the goal. I want legs under the table. I want 2 or more people to have legs under the table. And by the way, if those feet are touching each other and maybe doing something mildly inappropriate, then I've won. You know what I mean? I want legs under the table, cooking for somebody, and that's really the mission. When Jackson Geeson, he's my producer and cameraman. When we put this whole thing together, our goal was I want people to cook, period, end of sentence. I'm too old to want to be famous. You know what I mean? And, but what we really want people to do is just feel that swagger in the kitchen. You know what I mean? And just say, you know what? I'm going to pull this one off. And like I said, I'm delighted. We have hundreds of photos come in a week. People DMing us, showing us their creations, and I'm fucking delighted. And the ones that share them publicly, I can't share it enough. But they're apologizing. I didn't use this or I didn't use that. And I said, listen, have fun. Literally, have fun. Listen, if the pandemic taught us nothing, it taught us that cooking is fabulously entertaining. You know what I mean? Like, no disrespect to your friends and family, but how many times you want to hear about someone's kids and what they've accomplished? It's boring as hell. But if you're all chopping together and having a little cocktail together or shucking together, you know what I mean? I'm sure you have shucking classes. You know what I mean? You just got to make sure they don't put their oyster knife through their hand. But like I said, hey, listen, what you do, God bless. That whole mobile oyster shucking thing, buddy, I'm going to tell you something. You are swinging a pipe. I've seen you do it. And I know people don't want to wait for an oyster. When you tell them it's going to be, a half-hour wait or something, right. They're not used to things that being open from nature right in front of them. You know what I mean?
That's what it is.
But yeah, you got to do a lot of pre-shucking. I hope now to get those ice boards going. And get because
no, I still don't do a lot of pre-shucking. The pre-shucking comes like when I was in St. Louis the last week with the Oyster Festival, or if I'm doing something a big festival, then I'll pre-shuck where I know it's going to be a line. But like private parties and things.
Oh no, private parties. No. That's what they're bringing you to the table for. Yeah, there's no question about it. But like I said, there's not a lot of guys that do it. And, shit, I didn't even realize that you could buy frozen oysters on the half shop. I was talking to a food salesman. I go, what's that for? He goes, some people use them. I'm like, oh, my God, let me know who uses them so I can never go there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
A lot of buffets.
Yeah, well, right, exactly. Yeah. But, I mean, listen, you get what, there's exactly. But like I said, in the whole thing with the, oysters and clams and the R's and all that stuff, but people appreciate it, especially when you present it beautifully. And I don't know about you, but I've said to people trying an oyster for the first time, I said, listen, try this oyster because you'll know if you don't like this oyster, the one I shucked for you, then you definitively do not like oysters. I mean, don't go to some beat up, ratchety old fucking event where the guys open them off out of a dirty tin can and I'm wondering why you got sick, But listen, even getting back to that, and this bears noting, people could eat literally 2 cans of whipped cream, a pack of hot dogs, jelly beans, drink a half a pint of Jim Beam, have one oyster, get sick, and they'll blame the oyster. You know what I'm saying? So. But listen, people, and I'm sure you tell your people this as well. It's one of the safest foods to eat based on the labeling and the certification. We have to know when that oyster was, where it was from exactly, when it was harvested, and keep those tags for what, 90 days afterwards. So it's much safer than people think. You know what I mean? As long as you're buying a certified product.
Back to the shucking class. I want to
Yeah.
go to your fish classes. I was looking at your social media and saw you were doing some cooking classes with the young kids.
Yes.
Young.
Yeah.
So how did that come about? Is that something
Well,
special you're doing, or
yeah.
was
No,
that
you know
just a
what?
one-time thing?
We have a very robust polytech program. Like in our area, and whenever they do fish, I also sit on the advisory board for that school. And whenever they do fish, the textbooks really don't do it justice. So I made some suggestions, and I got myself in trouble because I said, "Well, it sounds like you want to do a couple of these classes, and I need a second job. Like I need more hair on my back." But anyway, but so these kids, and I have to tell you, they were fabulous, and they really took to it and treat the protein the same way you would treat any other protein. Obviously with dignity, obviously with certain preparation, but it's not a mystery just because all your life you go down the supermarket aisle and you see all the meat and the chicken and the pork, but you don't see a lot of fish. It's the same preparation. So I think we shot like 4 series with them. And we did 2 courses for each one. Like, we did a fritter and we did a salmon crudo and just had some fun with them. Again, not learning a recipe, learning a technique. Because as you well know, you can do different techniques with different products that they cross over, especially with fish. If you happen to like salmon, but you're not a halibut fan, if you have a halibut recipe, chances are it's going to translate. You know what I mean? So let them get comfortable with that. And the kids, like I said, the kids were incredibly receptive. And also I yelled at them off camera. So I said, I'm not getting paid for this shit, so you better smile.
You got to do what you got to do.
No, but they were, all kidding aside. I mean, these young ones coming up are really, listen, if you want me to be totally honest, in 35 years, my proudest accomplishment, I brought back the profession of a fishmonger. I mean, I have family, men and women who work in my store that support families. And it's not just, being a cook used to be you're falling out of the tree of life and it's the last branch before you hit the ground. People are taking it as a calling, as a vocation. And you don't have to do it for 35, 40 years. You could do it for a while and, go off to something else. So,
Yeah,
but it's
come back if you want to.
Yeah, right. But people have been really receptive to that whole idea. So that's been really nice.
So speaking of a fishmonger,
Yeah.
I asked this to all my oyster shuckers.
Yes.
I asked them, what do you call a real oyster shucker? So I'm going to ask you, what do you call a fishmonger? What's your definition of a fishmonger?
Okay. So a fishmonger, number one, is someone that doesn't necessarily like to fish. Okay. Because when I go fishing, the one thing I always catch is a buzz. That's number one. All right. Number two, you know how to break the proteins down. Okay. We are, by definition of the Old English, we are the wives of the fishermen. That's the original fishmonger. Okay. So that's another criteria. You got to look pretty. Okay. And that's, you really can't be an ugly fishmonger. You could try, you're just not going to get a lot going on. But in all seriousness, just to know how to treat the product the moment it leaves the water. And even though we're not in control of that, for me as a fishmonger to know, first of all, don't push seasonality. Don't care if a client of mine orders red snapper and the red snapper aren't great in the Fulton fish market that day, then we're gonna get them sea bass. We can't, listen. When you go to the store and you want a steak, okay, you might have an idea of a steak that you want. When you go to the fish market, you really shouldn't think of a particular fish. You could think of, I want seafood. Let me see what catches my eye. You know what I mean? And more importantly to that, a fishmonger is the personal guide of you, the client, and taking you through your likes and dislikes and steering you in the right direction. And so you have the best experience. You personally, from the time you left the store to you come home and cook it, by the time you get showered with admiration and gratitude after you cooked it, the whole experience comes out perfect for you. So that's what a fishmonger does. You know what I mean? But I don't know if that was a simple answer or just me not stopping to talk.
No, that was an answer. I mean, that's your opinion, and that's all that matters.
Well, that
But
was
I
an
do want
opinion
to
except for the
end
pretty
here.
part. Yeah.
Right, of course. I want to end it here, and then when we come back, we're going to talk about different types of fish, underrated fish.
Okay.
We're also going to talk about why you started the business, why and how, um, pressures over the years, and whatever else comes up.
All right.
Okay,
Look forward to it. Thank you, sir.
for sure. So yeah, I'm gonna cut her off there. But no,
All right.
thank you for your time, man. I got to get back to work at 1 o'clock.
Okay, no
So
problem. Do you
yeah,
want to pick it up tomorrow or
yeah, I
Thursday?
could do tomorrow. I could do tomorrow. Just let me know what day is
Hold on a
better
second.
for you. I know one of those days I'll be
Hold
home.
on a second. I'm just talking with Jackie real quick. Jackie,
Okay.
Thursday we can't do it. Tomorrow we're going to shoot though. How early can we do it tomorrow morning?
Let me text you my schedule. One of those days I'll be home, so anytime I can shoot, I can do it. But if I come in the office, 12 to 1 is my recording time. Unless you want to do it
Can we
after
do
5.
12 o'clock tomorrow? All right. So you text me, but right now we'll loosely plan 12 o'clock tomorrow.
Okay. Perfect.
All right. Sounds great. Gardner,
All right,
thank you
brother.
so much.
No, thank you, man.
All right. We'll talk soon. Take care.
All
Bye.
right.